Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank. Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes, Start Your Morning Right. My name is Isani Cayetano and today is Monday, the 22nd of November 2021. We are on the heels of an extended weekend. It was, of course, a celebratory one as we enjoyed and we partied to the sounds of the Garifuna drums on the 19th of November, which was Friday. And I'm certain that quite a number of us are still recovering from the weekend activities. I am alone today. I'm going to be hosting the show by myself, but nonetheless, we plan to have some very in-depth conversations across the course of the show. And of course, we will go through everything that we need to do in terms of our housekeeping. All right, so again, today is Monday, the 22nd of November. Welcome back as some of us are beginning our work week. Some of us perhaps started over the weekend as well. All right, so first things first, we're going to jump into the eye opener. All right, and our eye opener is taken from dailyarm.com and it goes as follows. We can improve our physical well-being by first starting to notice our thoughts and our reactions to them. The power of the mind is a curious thing because it is so powerful yet so difficult to control sometimes. We find ourselves thinking a certain way, knowing that this thought may be creating trouble for us, yet we find it difficult to stop. For example, many people have the experience of getting sick at the same time every year or every time they go on a plane. They may even be aware that their beliefs impact their experiences, so continue to think they will get sick, and they do. We have the power to create physical health and mental health simply by paying attention to the tapes running in our minds. Once we hear ourselves, we have the option to let that tape keep running or to make a new recording. We harness the power of the mind in our defense when we choose supportive, healing words that foster good health and high spirits. All we need to do is to remember to tend the field of our mind with the attentive and loving hand of a master gardener, tending her flower beds, culling out the weeds so that the blossoms may come to fruition. This is an interesting eye-opener. Again, I will draw from my own experiences as I have in the past in terms of relating to what is being said on our daily therapy session, if I may. All right, so it says here, once again, we can improve our physical well-being by first starting to notice our thoughts and our reactions to them. This speaks to a certain mindfulness that once we are able to, in a mental space, be able to hone in on some of the things that we need to do, either for ourselves, for a mental state, or other people around us. Once we're able to tap into that particular space, it gives you a particular perspective as well in terms of how to go about achieving some of these goals. Now, it also speaks to the kind of attentiveness that the master gardener, in the words of the eye-opener, refers to, that attention, that keen attention to details, to be able to either understand oneself in a moment or to be able to carry out whatever it is that you're doing with a certain eye for nuance and that sort of stuff. Right? So in terms of how I am able to relate to the eye-opener, there have been times perhaps where things get lost in translation, either in the activities that I do or the thoughts in my mind, and I'm forced to kind of step away and find a certain balance and be able to see a bigger picture. Once I'm able to do that, then I'm better and I'm in a better place to be able to either gather my thoughts or create sort of a timeline to be able to achieve the things that are in front of me. All right, so this particular eye opener speaks to me in that regard. I'm certain that others will have a different interpretation of what is being said or what is being read to you, but that is the beauty of the eye opener. It's always a matter of how we interpret, how we relate to what is being shared, and of course, it serves as food for thought. That is the most important thing. That when we walk away from what we've shared with you, you're able to focus on that, you know, put that into some kind of perspective or context into your daily activities, and we go from there. All right, so that is the eye opener. Of course, we now get into our weather. I know that over the course of the weekend, it held up, right? So that was a good thing. I know that Friday and Saturday were, fairly okay, at least in Belize City. So we'll go to the weather report and find out what we can expect for the remainder of the day and, of course, the days ahead.
An increase in moisture is expected later today with the approach of a weak cold front. The 24-hour forecast: sunny with some cloudy spells today, becoming mostly cloudy by tonight. Showers will be isolated at first, then a few showers, periods of light rain, and isolated thunderstorms will start over the north this afternoon. Activity will then spread over the south, some coastal areas, and offshore by tonight. High temperatures for today will reach 85 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 89 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 73 degrees Fahrenheit in the mountains. Low temperatures for tonight will be 71 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 69 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 62 degrees Fahrenheit in the hills. Winds over the open sea will be from the north to northwest at 5 to 10 knots, and sea conditions will be slight to light chop. High tides occur at 12:17 this afternoon and then 11:14 tonight. Low tides at 5:13 this evening and then 6:54 tomorrow morning. The moon will set at 8:45 this morning and rise at 7:57 tonight. Sunset is at 5:15 this evening and sunrise at 6:02 tomorrow morning. The extended forecast: variably cloudy skies and cool conditions with a few showers or periods of light rain, mainly over some southern coastal and offshore areas, decreasing. Elsewhere, little or no rainfall is expected for Tuesday and Tuesday night. And in the tropical weather outlook, tropical cyclone formation is not expected in the North Atlantic, the Caribbean Sea, or the Gulf of Mexico during the next 48 hours. And this has been this morning's weather report from the National Meteorological Service.
All right, so there we go with the weather report, what we can expect again for the remainder of the week in terms of either shower activities and that sort of stuff. We are a few days away from the end of this year's hurricane season. We also know that storms do form as well outside of this designated period. So we encourage everyone to, keep a plan, to stick to the plan in the event that something does change between now and the end of the hurricane season. All right, so it is Monday morning, and of course, our focus at this point is on the Eye on the News, where we will discuss briefly the activities of the past weekend and, of course, what you guys can expect in the days ahead insofar as events that are making the newscast. So first things first, folks, we want to say congratulations to Destiny Wagner. She is the new Miss Earth 2021. And of course, she is Belizean, which means that we're once again on the map. And we're so proud of our Destiny Wagner for having, bested the competition to be crowned this year's Miss Earth. So we have a brief clip in terms of the announcement where she was informed that she is the number one candidate to have participated and to have emerged victorious in the pageant. So here we go with that clip.
Coming across loud and clear?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
And how are you feeling right now? We're right towards the end of the pageant. What are the nerves like?
I'm very nervous, however, I'm excited and I'm thankful to be here and have made it this far, so I feel great.
Do you know at what point we are in the pageant? Are you aware from where you are, where we are?
I have no idea where we are at all.
You have no idea? It's a little bit different. That's why I ask, right? Because we are doing this virtually, so we're not even sure what you hear, what you know. So I don't know if you know that you are now crowned Miss Earth 2021! You are it! Congratulations, Belize! You are the Miss Earth of 2021!
Oh my, I feel a bunch of emotions right now. Oh my God.
Let it sink in for a while, and when you're ready, only when you're ready, share us how you're feeling inside there, Belize. You took home the crown.
My country has never placed at Miss Earth before, nor have we ever had an international crown. So right now, this is what we needed, and I'm happy to have represented such a gorgeous country. I'm overwhelmed right now with emotions. I don't even, the words and the gratitude, it's very hard to express. But I am thankful, and I'm thankful for the Miss Earth organization and thankful for my team as well.
Well, Belize, you have made history, as you pointed out, the first time that your country has placed in a pageant, taken the crown in a pageant, and what a way to do it.
Of course, it is a proud moment for us as a country that for the first time we have taken the crown in an international pageant. So once again, congratulations to Destiny Wagner. Of course, Prime Minister John Briceño and his administration have also extended their congratulations to the winner, Destiny Wagner. All right, so from there we segue to other aspects that will make the newscast later this evening. I know that today being the 22nd of November, a new statutory instrument comes into force, which means that the nightly curfew has now been extended by 1 hour from Monday to Thursday. Right? So we have until 10 o'clock to get indoors and to remain indoors until 4 a.m. And of course, on the weekend, it is extended another hour to 11 o'clock. All right, so that again comes into force with a new statutory instrument as we continue as a country to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. The other things that are making news or will be making the news later today and of course into tomorrow and the rest of the week, we know that the Narco 11, they go back to court tomorrow, the 23rd. As far as the attorneys have informed us, they will be making submissions for bail applications in the matter concerning the aircraft that was landed on the Southern Highway near Bladen about 2 or so weeks ago. Remember, there are at least 4 police officers who were implicated in this particular illicit activity, and they are on remand at the Belize Central Prison in Hattieville, and they will make a court appearance tomorrow, or they will do so on their behalf tomorrow to see if bail can be secured for them. All right, and I know that last week as well, there was the destruction of the 25 or 23 bales, I'm being made to understand, the 23 bales of cocaine that were confiscated from that particular aircraft, and that entire ordeal that transpired on the Southern Highway, where reportedly other officers who responded to the scene came under gunfire from their own colleagues who, as I mentioned, have been implicated in this activity. So that takes place tomorrow from what we're made to understand. And of course, we began our newscast on Friday with yet some more disturbing news coming out of the Belize Police Department, where a former officer was found with a kilo of cocaine, and he had just left from the police training academy in Belmopan. So of course, there will be an investigation into, an ongoing investigation, I should say, into that matter. Again, we began our newscast with that on Friday, and we're expecting that perhaps we would be able to get more information either from the Commissioner of Police later today or in the week when we get a chance to speak with him to apprise us of what's taking place there. Again, the Belize Police Department at this point seems to be embattled with all of these allegations and all of these activities that are happening that are outside the rule of law. All right, so we're going to be keeping a close eye on that one. So that does it for us this morning with the Eye on the News. It's a rather brief one. Again, I'm going at it by myself, so I don't really have much of a discussion to impart. So those stories and more you'll be able to catch at 6 o'clock. Our content is streamed on Facebook and YouTube if you're not able to sit in front of your television and catch it live on 5. That does it for this morning's Eye on the News. So before we go to our first commercial break, I just want to give you guys a brief idea of the discussions that we will be having in the course of the show this morning. Our first segment will sit with the Honorable Henry Charles Usher. He's the chairman of the People's United Party and the Briceño administration's first year in office. So we will be having an in-depth discussion with Henry Charles Usher to discuss the achievements and some of perhaps the shortcomings of the party and, of course, its administration over the past 12 months. Thereafter, we will be discussing all things Wagner's Youth Facility. My good friend William Dawson will be joining me on the set, and we will have that conversation as our second discussion of the morning. And our third segment will be a video clip from an intern that we had with us. Of course, it's something that we want to share with you guys because it's worth following up with people who have passed through these doors or through our studios, if I may. And so that will be something that we will look forward to as well. That being said, guys, we'll take our first commercial break, and when we return, it's to have a sit down with the chairman of the People's United Party.
Bundle the fastest, most reliable, unlimited broadband in Belize with your prepaid or postpaid mobile plan or Netflix. You can bundle your broadband with your prepaid and enjoy 50% off all national calls, plus get SMS and data. Paid plans? Then bundle with any speed and pay only $25 extra monthly to enjoy unlimited smart-to-smart calls, plus 500 minutes, plus 6,300 megabytes of data. Stream unlimited HD movies and TV shows with our broadband, plus the Netflix add-on for only $30 monthly, and enjoy streaming on your laptop, TV, phone, or tablet. Visit a smart showroom near you to sign up or upgrade to the bundle that's right for you. Smart, bringing people together.
After a rough week of school, Jake and his friends decide to treat themselves to frozen coffee. And since they don't have cash on them, they decide to use eCash. With eCash's geolocation feature, Jake can easily find the nearest coffee spot. With eCash's built-in option to split bills, Jake can pay the bill and his friends can reimburse their portion of the bill. Jake scans the merchant's code and confirms payment. Jake then views his transaction history and taps on the transaction recently made, then taps the Split the Bill button where he selects the Evenly option to evenly split the bill. The application splits the bill automatically. His friends receive and accept the request. Geolocation and splitting the bill via eCash makes Jake enjoy his digital lifestyle.
I was approached by our district president, Mr. Garcia, to attend the workshop because we, as a men fellowship, discuss different issues pertaining to men. And while I attended the session, I found it very beneficial, interesting, and educational. There are lots of youths who I have taught and who live in the community where I'm working. They are young men, young adults, and the sessions that we did would help them. I felt that it would be beneficial if I speak to these men on a one-to-one and peer basis to discuss the same issues that we discuss in our sessions so that they can impact some change in their lives. We discuss gender issues, crime and violence, gender roles, and they are very receptive to the learning to what I had shared with them. Not everyone would be open to going to a session that we have, but by this medium that I approached in mentoring them, talking to them, I felt that more was able to be discussed with them. It made a greater impact in their lives, and I felt better about it. The biggest takeaway was the man box, and that men do wear masks everywhere they go. At home, they're wearing a mask with their family, with their friends, they're wearing another mask at their jobs, another mask. So everywhere they go, they have to wear a mask to fit in with society. And I learned a lot that we need to unpack that man box to show our true selves.
Hi, I'm Chef Sean Quillen. I love cooked fish fillet, and I prefer to get my fish straight at the fish market right here at Conchel Bay. But you see, sometimes you come out here and you don't know what you're getting. The fish has no label, it has no patch of skin. But don't worry about it. I am here today to teach you how to avoid fish fraud. When purchasing your fillet, remember to look out for the patch of skin required by law. Or you could tell them by the physical characteristics: long and slender, barracuda, nice white meat, hagfish, the deep bloodline from the bow to the stand, that is jack. When buying in bulk or buying out of a bag, make sure to inspect each fillet individually to avoid what we call in a Creole, pussy in a bag. What a pussy in a bag? Fraud. If that's not the help you, because even for me as a professional chef at this man for 40 years, that's really challenging. All I could tell you is buy from a reputable source or buy it whole. And if all of that's not available to you, just go to fishrighteatright.com, and we at Oceana have a fish identification chart. Because guess where you're going here now? We talk about bloodline just now one thing, and that's a snapper, right? Classic snapper. What kind of snapper this?
This is the shark.
Nurse shark. Highly illegal. No make they trick you, no make you buy pussy in a bag. Do the right thing. Fish right, eat right.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. As we mentioned prior to the commercial break, our first conversation is with the Honorable Henry Charles Usher. Not only is he a minister in the Briceño administration, he's also the chairman of the People's United Party. And this morning we will be discussing the achievements of the administration in its first year. Good morning,
Morning,
Charles.
morning, Isani, and certainly good morning to all Belizeans watching at home and abroad. It's good to be here, good to be in studio. If I can start this morning by joining the thousands of Belizeans who are congratulating Miss Destiny on her great victory at Miss Earth 2021. No, I think that is a success story for Belize, success story for her, for her family, for all the work that she has put in, and we're proud of her and very happy for her achievements. So congratulations, Destiny.
Definitely, definitely. 1 year in office is a milestone that the party is celebrating. I know that you guys have had some achievements, quite a number of achievements. You have also had perhaps some setbacks or some challenges in terms of fulfilling certain aspects of your mandate. Let's begin first of all by talking about your achievements thus far.
Yeah, thanks, Isani. Certainly, 1 year in, it has gone by very fast. There have been a lot of challenges. We certainly did not comprehend the level of the challenges that face us, especially with the economy when we won that election on November 11, 2020. We knew it was bad, we just didn't know it was this bad. We didn't realize that really the entire economic system was gutted out. It was really like a carcass left over, and everybody was just picking the pieces of that carcass. So we had to really go in there and put together an economic recovery plan. And that was really where we started off. At the very first cabinet meeting, November the 16th, when we got a briefing from the financial secretary, from representatives from the central bank, we realized very soon at that first meeting that we had to put together that plan. We had to be able to get the economic wheel turning again. And of course, this all was happening during COVID, during the pandemic. And last November, we saw the numbers skyrocketing. And this was even before the Delta variant was introduced in Belize. So we saw those numbers increasing. We knew that the pandemic was still very much with us. We didn't have the vaccines yet. And so we had to go about putting together a sustainable economic plan in the midst of a pandemic. So the achievement really, Isani, is one that I can say it's about rescuing the economic situation of Belize. And that economic recovery plan had a 5-part component. The first part, we had to cut down on our expenses. We had to cut down on what government was spending month to month. If you remember, the farm administration was borrowing $1 million a day just to pay expenses, just to be able to pay wages, to pay the electricity bill, to pay the different expenses that government has. So we had to cut down on that so that we can have some financial breathing space. We had to also increase revenue. We knew that there was a lot of loopholes, a lot of leakages in customs and in the different tax departments. So we had to be able to increase the revenue that government was collecting. We also had to stimulate the economy. We had to get the economic wheel moving. And that included introducing cheaper financing into the economic system. It included opening up new markets. You saw the cattle market. You saw the safe opening of different industries. The free zone was opened up. Tourism was really brought back to a level where we are on the road to getting back to where we were pre-pandemic times. Fourth of all, we had to renegotiate the debt. That was a big component of why the economic situation was where it was. People were the government was just borrowing too much, unsustainably, without a plan. The big one, of course, was the international bond, the US dollar bond, which under the previous administration in 12 plus years increased, the principal increased, because they kept kicking the can down the road. Instead of renegotiating and getting a smaller debt, a smaller principal, they kept capitalizing the interest, increasing the principal, and extending out the terms.
I've always said that each administration, irrespective of the party that is in power, has to be credited with certain milestone achievements. I always reflect back on, for instance, the previous administration taking the matter of the territorial dispute to the ICJ. This current administration successfully dealing with addressing this super bond problem, right? And I say problem because for a number of years that was the albatross around our necks, right? This was a serious financial burden that was kind of stymieing the progress of the country.
But Isani, even though that was the one that received most of the media attention, most of the public's attention, the international bond, there were other international obligations that the previous administration was taking on that we had to look at. We had to look at a rescheduling of our debt. We were at a 130 debt to GDP ratio, meaning that every dollar that government collected, it had to pay out $1.30 in loan payments. That's just unsustainable. If you have a household and you're making $100 a week, Isani, and you have to pay out $130 every week to the bank or to the credit union, how will you have any money left over to pay for education, to pay for food?
You'll always be operating in the red.
Yeah, exactly. You'll always be operating in the red. You'll always have to go and try to find that 30 cents somewhere that you will have to borrow and then pay back for that weekly expense. So there's no way to run a household that way. You can't run a government that way. You have to be able to bring down that debt to GDP ratio significantly if you want to be able to have the programs that we have in Plan Belize carried out. when he was leaving office, the former Prime Minister said he grieved for Belize. He said that nobody will be able to recover from this. Well, we showed him in less than a year that we were able to do it. We were able to turn it around.
It also speaks to the resilience of the Belizean people as well, right? While perhaps your administration are the stewards in terms of leading the way to economic recovery, you also look at the fact that Belizeans are pretty tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you, Isani, and it leads me to the fifth part of that plan, which was the salary adjustment, which was the most difficult part of the economic plan, because it entailed going to our public officers, to our teachers or nurses and doctors or police officers, and saying, listen, we will have to adjust the salary because we need that breathing space, a financial breathing space. And certainly, as you said, they have taken on that challenge. They have made that sacrifice for the betterment of the country, for the betterment of the economy. And that's an important point, Isana, because any new government would come in and try to spend and say, okay, this is, a free-for-all. We saw it in 2008 very, very clearly, the way they operated when they had a $100 million surplus from the previous PUP administration. When we got in there, the Treasury was broke. It was a sobering moment to understand that, listen, we have no money to run the government from November to March. Remember, we didn't have a new budget until April.
Yeah.
So we had to find a way to run the government for those 5-6 months in which there was a broke Treasury where we were just, the previous administration was borrowing and so on. So you spoke about the resilience of the Belizean people, certainly. And it is something that we had to take on as a challenge very early on to say, listen, we had to be upfront, we had to explain to say, this is what we need to do so that we can have it better going forward. It wasn't about we just won an election and we're going to work towards winning another election. We are setting the government, the country, the economic situation on a sustainable path going forward. And I think that was the most important aspect of what we did in the first year.
Let's go back a bit, because I'd like to reflect on that particular issue where you had to approach the teachers as well as the public officers with what was initially a proposed 10% reduction in salaries. I am certain that perhaps in the first instance you guys were met with some resistance, which led to what we saw unfold over a period of time in terms of the back and forth and the protests and what have you. Describe to me some of the challenges that you guys faced as an administration in trying to hammer this out and in trying to implement it perhaps in the softest way possible. I say soft because nobody wanted a 10% salary cut. And for you to introduce that, you would have been met with some opposition.
Isani, that's a very good question, because approaching it, you have to look at where you were. And there were two schools of thought. The first school of thought is, well, we knew the solution was we had to cut down what government was paying in salary overall.
Yeah.
So there was one school of thought saying that, okay, let's cut down on the number of employees, meaning that we would have to send some people home. Well, very early on, the Prime Minister and certainly the Cabinet said, no, we were not going to send people home. This was a tough economic time. We were in pandemics. The pandemic was raging. We could not send people home. So what was option number two? Option number two was looking at how much do we need to save month to month, and what does that translate into? And what it worked out to was a reduction of around $60 million, which when you spread it out across the public service, it meant about a 10% cut, going from top to bottom. And certainly the lower rung of the pay scale were not affected, because we said we had to have a minimum that people were making just to have a living wage. So those are the pay scale 1, 2, 3, I believe up to pay scale 4, but I might be mistaken. But the lower pay scales were the ones that were not, no adjustment was made to them. So this was just affected for those up. And in that way, we were able to have the savings that we needed to just make it more sustainable. So when we had our very first meeting with the joint union team, I believe it was in late February, We explained the economic situation to them. We showed them what the economic picture was. And we asked them to look at how we can solve it, how we can move forward, knowing that we needed to do these different cost-saving measures here, revenue creation here, stimulating the economy there, renegotiating the debt, and also the salary adjustment. And just to go back to the debt, Misani, I think it's important because this government also renegotiated the international debt, the bilateral debt with Taiwan. So to give us more breathing space so that Taiwan is saying, okay, well, you don't have to make these payments until 2 or 3 years later. We also looked at the overdraft at the central bank, which was approaching, it was already unsustainable, but you don't want to have an overdraft attracting such high interest rates because overdrafts always do. So we eliminated the overdraft to make sure that we're paying the lowest interest rate possible on the loans that we have domestically. So it was really at looking at the entire debt as a whole and making the necessary adjustments so that we could make payments. So it wasn't just about the international bond, it was about looking at all the debt comprehensively and make the decisions necessary. And it is a great achievement. In fact, in the last few weeks, we've seen some very good achievements in the country. We saw the blue bond, certainly that is a big achievement for the country. Eliminating the super bond, putting in its place a more sustainable payment structure with the blue bond, but also a win for the environment. It's an environmentally conscious bond because they will be creating a fund that will be using for environmental projects. So certainly it's a win-win all around. We've been lauded internationally for this achievement. In fact, they're saying Belize is the first to do it in this type of manner, and other countries are following our model.
It sets a certain precedence.
Sure. And then 2 weeks ago, we saw the investment summit where we had the IDB, the CDB, the World Bank, different international organizations coming in and saying that they are looking at the economic growth and saying that the GDP will increase by more than what they expected. The growth will be more than what they expected. So
perhaps that kind of a good news flies in the face of what was initially predicted by the IMF in terms of Belize as a country trying to find its footing on the economic rung.
Absolutely, and it goes to, as you said, the stewardship of the economy by this government, by John Briceño as Prime Minister, because I think it's important that history will record that the Honorable John Briceño made the tough decisions as a first-time Prime Minister, as a new Prime Minister, to come in and say we have to be disciplined, we have to be able to carry out our economic recovery plan for sustainability. You know, and it has been difficult because, you know, your supporters, as an area representative, your supporters are saying, well, we want to see more jobs, we want to see more houses rolled out, we want to see the different programs in Plan Belize carried out. And yes, those are coming. But for them to come, we needed to make sure the economy was healthy. And the economy was not healthy. And I think one of our biggest mistakes in the last year was not communicating that enough to the Belizean people, was not telling the Belizean people, this is what we found. It wasn't just the overall picture, but what we found in particular ministries, how they were gutted out. Ministry of Works, which is now the Ministry of Infrastructure, no equipment was there. We had to look at, in the beginning when, if you remember last year in November, there was a lot of flooding, there were 2 hurricanes or different storms, and you had to do a lot of road work. We had to look at partnering with the private sector to get that road work done. Why? Because the Ministry of Works had no equipment. We look at the police department, you saw that the morale of the police officers was very low. The trucks that they had, the vehicles, the equipment that they had was almost obsolete. We had to look at all of that, and we had to make sure that we put in place the proper supplies, the proper resources to these different departments, these different ministries. Ministry of Health, for instance, Isani.
I was just about to segue to that. So while we've discussed what has taken place on the economic front, I know that the health system remains one of the biggest challenges for the administration thus far because of the pandemic situation and the strains that it has been having on the overall health care.
You know, and maybe this has not come out publicly enough, but there was absolutely no plan, November 2020, by the previous administration. It was almost a week-to-week, a daily reaction, response to what the pandemic was bringing. But there was no plan as to where are we going to get the vaccines from. Why isn't there an international move to try to get our friends in our friendly countries to donate vaccines to us? There was no plan in terms of the medication that we needed to bring in that would be treating COVID patients. There was no plan as to what would happen if the hospitals become totally at full capacity. What would we do with persons who needed health care after that? And so it was critical to go in there, and the first thing that had to happen was that we had to put in place a sustainable plan as to how we're going to look at this pandemic. If you remember, last year they were only using PCR testing, and the test results took 2-3 weeks sometimes before they came back. Persons were then transmitting the virus to so many other people within those 2 to 3 weeks. Right away, testing capacity was increased to make sure that we could find out if you are positive, that you needed to isolate. We do the contact tracing right away to make sure that we can isolate a breakout in any particular business or a home or a village, for instance. And we look at those villages where there was a breakout. They had a couple of villages in the south, for instance. We provided food services to them. We provided grocery bags to them, made sure that they could still have food to put on the table while they were going through, the transmission was going around.
It's a delicate balance when you look at economy and health in the context of the pandemic, because while you do want to have economic activity to return to where perhaps it once was, you're still looking at a situation where the infection rate remains high and people are dying from COVID-19. And so I'm looking at it as a sort of a very, very, like a high wire act, like a tightrope. You know how delicate that is in terms of the direction you move and trying to maintain balance, because you can't tip too much on one side because you'll be perhaps neglecting the other side.
You know, and that really brings us to where I wanted to go in terms of the plan to get the vaccines in the country. Belize signed on to COVAX very early, but of course COVAX costs money. We wanted as a government to make sure that we had enough vaccines and different vaccines. So we had donations of the AstraZeneca vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine, the different vaccines that were coming out, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and we made it available to Belizean people for free so that we could do that delicate balance act to make sure that we open the economy. And the best way to do that is to get a threshold of our population vaccinated. Now, I know there's still skepticism out there because I go out there on a daily basis and I try to put the facts to my constituents in Fort George and say, listen, this is why you should get a vaccine. It helps you it gives you more tools then. It gives your body more tools to fight the disease. It's not a perfect remedy. You can still catch the virus even with the vaccine. So you have to make sure that you continue to do the wearing the mask, washing your hands, practicing good hygiene, and so on. But the vaccine gives your body an additional tool to fight off. And that is the way you get the economy open, by making sure that the business places, the workers in those business places are vaccinated, making sure that the persons shopping at those business places are vaccinated. We need to be able to get more of our population vaccinated because that is the best way to fight off this disease.
Let me ask you a question while we're on the issue of vaccinations. I know that last week a circular came out, I believe it's from your ministry, in respect to the public officers who need to be vaccinated, if not fully, at least the first jab by the middle of December.
Right.
And I know that too is being faced or met with some resistance from the Public Service Union. How did you guys arrive at that decision, and why is it mandatory for this to take place by the 15th of December?
Okay, two questions you have there. Why is it, how did we arrive at this decision? I think that is important. As I just said a while ago, it's important if we want our economic wheel to be turning, if we want our economy to be open, then we have to get our people vaccinated. We realized that very early as a cabinet. We get a weekly briefing on the medical situation, on the COVID situation. And in the summer, we spoke about you have to either be vaccinated or you have to provide a negative test every 2 weeks. Now, that negative test, I believe, while it's good, it shows that you don't have it. That 2 week window is still a long time for you for anything can happen in those 2 weeks. So we realized as a cabinet that, listen, we had to eventually move towards a soft vaccine mandate and eventually towards our public service being vaccinated. It wasn't a decision that we took very lightly. We understand that there are those that are skeptical to it, those that may have beliefs against the vaccine. But you have to make decisions for the collective good. And we believe that this was in the best interest of Belize, best interest of our people to protect them. And it came with the necessary medical advice. So it wasn't done in a vacuum. We got the recommendation from our medical team. We got the recommendation from doctors saying, listen, this morning I was reading a report in a UK newspaper from an anonymous doctor who was saying that there is so much fatigue in the medical community with unvaccinated people because they are taking up bed spaces. They are putting a strain on the health system. They are putting a strain on the medical officers because they have to be seeing so many unvaccinated people needing additional care, needing intensive care because of a private decision, a personal decision that they made. And when you have a personal decision affecting a national situation, that's when we really have to make collective decisions as a government to say, listen, yes, you have your private, personal choice, but we have to make decisions for the common good.
Yeah.
And I believe that's how that decision was arrived at. Now, the question about December the 15th, well, it was something, originally it was supposed to be earlier, but I said, you know what, when I spoke to the CEO and he sent out the circular, I said, let us give a little more time for persons to go out and get their vaccines. Again, it's free. It's available at all healthcare systems across the country. We believed that this was enough time for our public officers to go out and get the vaccines before the 15th. So it wasn't really that, oh, we have to do it by the end of the year or anything like that. It was just to give them enough time between now and then.
How do you respond to the criticism that enforcing such a mandate is discriminatory? I believe those are the words used by the president of the PSU, that it's tantamount to discrimination against the public officers who are subject to this particular enforcement.
Let me say one thing about that. I saw the circular that the PSU sent out saying that they were not consulted. That's not true. The CEO from the public service did speak to the president of the PSU on the issue. But even before that, because we have monthly meetings with the PSU, and in one of our meetings, either in July or August, I can't remember which month, we brought up this issue. We said, listen, right now, it's vaccine or negative tests. But I'm giving you a heads up. I believe that it's going to be mandatory to get the vaccine. Get your membership ready for this. Let them understand that this is the direction the medical community is telling us we need to go. So for them to say that they were caught off guard by it is not necessarily true. I think that they had enough time to educate their membership on this issue. On the question of it being discriminatory, I look at it this way, Sonny. If this is like a Category 5 hurricane, there's a mandatory evacuation order. There will always be persons that ignore the mandatory evacuation order. Now, if the hurricane hits and they're in their home and they need help, when there's a mandatory evacuation order, is it fair to the emergency personnel to have to go and rescue them because they were told, please leave your home? get to higher ground. In this case, please get your vaccine. Give yourself more protection. So is a mandatory evacuation order discriminatory? That's a question they would have to answer.
Our next topic that I wanted to touch on is the issue of citizen security. I know that while your administration is dealing with the economy, your administration is also dealing with the health system in light of the pandemic, there's also the issue of crime and violence and the fact that Belizeans need to feel safe either at home or while they go about their daily business. So I wanted you to weigh in on where we are insofar as trying to keep a lid on crime and violence. I know that it is virtually impossible, but it's an effort nonetheless to be made to try to keep Belizeans as safe as possible.
Well, I don't think it's impossible. I think you have to look at crime, and this has been said before, different studies. I mean, there have been numerous studies on the root causes of crime, and certainly every study has pointed at poverty and unemployment as being really the main factors that create a criminal situation. So we have to look at those root causes. What can we do to get people employed? What can we do to move people out of poverty? In the last, from 2009 to 2018, when the last poverty assessment report came out, we saw poverty increase by 13%. This was even though there was Petrocari money, and even though there was the oil money, even though there was money in the economy, poverty increased. It means that the last administration was not prioritizing getting people out of poverty. It was almost like they were, in just enabling poverty to persist. So we have to look at ways in which we directly affect the economic situations of persons, making sure that they can be employed, making sure that they can send their children to school. Education is another critical factor, making sure that they have the proper health care and so on. No, that will not eliminate all crime, certainly. So you have to also look at the policing of crime. You have to look at giving the police the necessary resources to battle crime. You have to make sure that you have good police officers. It's a situation where the Minister of Police has found that there are so many police officers not doing their jobs. They are good police officers. My sister is a police officer, so I know I spend a lot of time with the police department. But you have to be able to give them the resources they need. You have to be able to have a good morale within the system to make sure that they know that they can get promoted if it's their time to be promoted and so on. But you also have to make sure that they stay disciplined and focus on what their job is. And their job is not to go out and arrest people. Their job is to provide security. Their job is to make sure that people feel safe. That is the job of the police department, and it almost becomes a situation where they get burned out. There's so many things happening, so many situations that they can't respond to all of them. But if we come together as a community with the police department, I believe that you're going to see better results. And that is already happening. There's a recruiting class right now that I think they're going to be graduating very soon. I had a chance to meet with some of them. I had a chance to sit in on what they were learning from the academy and so on. And it's encouraging to see that young persons they want to be police officers. They want to do their part to keep their community safe. And that's what is encouraging to me as a Minister of Public Service, but also as a citizen of this country.
Isn't it disheartening, when you hear reports of police officers engaged in certain illegal activities, when they are the ones who swore by oath to protect and serve, but there are cases where they run afoul of the law themselves. I look at what has transpired over the past 3 weeks, for instance, where you have officers being named in drug trafficking activities. Now, that is nothing new to anywhere in the world. You find that you do have officers who themselves break the law. This could be in anywhere. But in our little Belize, where so much trust and confidence is placed on the department to ensure that the laws are abided by and to ensure that people are safe, they themselves turn around and are part of this kind of illicit activity. Isn't that disappointing?
Well, you use the word disheartening, and certainly it is. I think it's frustrating to know that there are a lot of, not only police officers, but it becomes more focused on them because they are the ones that are supposed to be carrying out law and order. But I think that the ministry has been doing a good job of trying to root out those persons from the department. I know that for this year alone, I think that there are over 40 police officers that have been suspended or placed on interdiction or actually dismissed from the department because of these type of activities. It's a work in progress, and it can't happen just like that you just go in and purge the whole system. You have to be able to find those good officers, get them in the right supervisory position so that they can set the example for junior officers, and I think that's what is happening right now. But is it disheartening to see that? Certainly it is. We have to make sure that they are not above the law, that justice is served the way it should be served. They are a citizen of this country like any other citizen, and they need to, answer for whatever crime that they committed, no?
In terms of infrastructure development, so we've discussed economy, we've discussed health, we've discussed citizen security, albeit briefly. We turn now to infrastructure. We've always looked at building roads and so forth as something that creates jobs for people to be employed. It's a healthy part of the economic recovery process or the economic development of a country. What can you share with us in terms of where we are in that particular sector?
Isani, building a road is not only about creating jobs, it's about connecting people.
Yeah,
it's about making sure farmers can get their products to the market. It's about making sure that persons who visit Belize as tourists can get to their destination efficiently, can feel safe when they get to their destination, not going down a bumpy road and feel a little worried about their security. It's about making sure that our businesses can connect with each other. So infrastructure is not only about roads and bridges. You have the physical infrastructure that you spoke about, but you also have the social infrastructure. You have to make sure that the economy is working to a certain extent where you have education, health, jobs. You need the human infrastructure. You need to have an educated population that will be able to serve these different industries. You need engineers, you need doctors, you need educated tour guides. You need you need an educated workforce. I always tell the residents of Fort George, the skills pay the bills. You have to hone your skills if you want to be able to pay your bills, right? And whatever that skill might be, you might be a tour guide, you might be a teacher, you might be a mechanic, a welder. We need all of those. I was speaking at the investment summit that we had recently to some of our agricultural business persons, and they were saying that they want persons that can drive combines. They want persons that are able to operate the heavy machinery. They want more welders, they need more electricians, they need more plumbers. So we have to be able to build that human infrastructure. But the fourth one is as important, Isani, and that's the digital infrastructure. We have to be able to build the digital infrastructure of this country to make sure that through the use of e-commerce, through the use of e-business and e-governance, where it's made more efficient. Governing is made more efficient. Business is made more efficient. I was happy to hear that they have cut down the time to create a company in Belize from 8 days to 3 days. But even 3 days might be too much. We have to be able to do that in 1 day, because really it's just to fill out the application, get it approved, and you form your company. So maybe it can be done in 24 or 48 hours.
But if there was a system in place that allows either for the automation or the electronic process to flow smoothly.
Right. So that's what is being built right now, the vital statistics unit. It pains me every day to see so many persons sitting out there waiting to get their birth certificate or or marriage certificate, whatever it is, to get their paperwork. It should be done electronically. You can be sitting at home in Punta Gorda and apply for a birth certificate and it can be sent to you. You know, that's the type of electronic system that we need. So that persons don't have to travel by bus all the way here, perhaps get here too late. They have to either spend the night or go back to PG, come back the next day. That's not necessary. In 2021, that should not be necessary. So we have to build that digital infrastructure as well. And even the international investors are telling us that we need better utility infrastructure in Belize for the electricity, for water, for internet providers, so that they are able to have a business that's employing Belizeans, but well, they're businessmen, so they want to make a profit. So they want to make sure that by having efficient systems, they can come in, invest, and know that they are protected, their investment is protected. So those 4 infrastructural improvements, developments are critical. The physical, roads, bridges, etc. The human infrastructure to have an educated population able to serve the different industries. The social infrastructure so that you have a good healthcare system, you have a good school system, and so on. And of course, the digital infrastructure.
In summarizing our conversation this morning, we look at Plan Belize as a 5-year list of objectives that the party and its government needs to achieve or should seek to achieve as much as possible. How would you, based on where we are at present, grade or rate where we are in terms of achieving these individual objectives under Plan Belize?
Well, I'm a student, Isani, so I'm not the teacher. I'm learning. This past year I have been learning a lot. You know, it's first time I've been in office, first time as a near representative and as a minister of government. And certainly I will leave the grading for you guys because the media seems to like to grade. But I think what's important is the lessons that we've learned over the first year. I mean, having going through these challenges, pandemic, the economy and so on. And certainly we're human, so we have made certain mistakes in certain areas, I will give that. And I think that the biggest challenges that we have had that we've not really addressed, you know, there are 3 really. The communication, as I spoke about, the explanation, you know, explaining to the Belizean people why we had to make certain decisions. The communication was what we found, explanation why we had to do what we did. And the third part of it is what I just call a translation, meaning that we've had so much achievement in terms of academically, in terms of what we've done on paper, renegotiating the debt, looking at getting the economic wheel turning again, making sure that the infrastructure is in place for these developments. Now it's time to translate that to tangible benefits for the Belizean people. And that is what we need to do in 2022. We have to be able to carry out our Plan Belize projects. And one of the, you know, the good moves, you know, I have to congratulate the Prime Minister on this one as well. He put a team together. It's almost like a coordinating team. And this team goes around to each ministry and says, okay, this is what Plan Belize says in your ministry. Where are you in terms of what Plan Belize says? So they keep us focused, they keep us grounded, they keep us making sure that we always turn back to Plan Belize. If there's a decision to be made, what did we say we were going to do in Plan Belize? So that's what we have been carrying out so far. So that's my main focus for this upcoming year, is to start to translate the academic achievements into tangible benefits for the Belizean people through the use of Plan Belize, the projects. And we're seeing it start already. The building of the houses, I think that is critical. The updating of the education curriculum, I think that's a big move by the Ministry of Education. We're looking at the cultural development of our country. We will soon be looking at the necessary reform measures, and I haven't even touched on that, and I'm a Minister of Constitutional and Political Reform. But the necessary reform measures to make our laws better serve the Belizean people. I think that's important to look at the antiquated laws that we have, modernize it, make it more people-oriented. I think that is critical.
That will be quite an undertaking, though, because you'll be looking at reviewing the existing legislations and see how best that you could either tweak, update, and in some cases, to replace them altogether?
Well, it's not only the legislation, Isan, it's even more than that. It's really looking at the way we're governed and see if it can be improved, and certainly it can be improved. It's at looking at areas. We recently introduced a protected disclosures bill, the Whistleblowers Act. We're looking at different legislations to improve government and the way we're governed. And certainly, as the Prime Minister announced in his Independence Day speech, a commission has to be appointed that will be looking at all of this comprehensively, that will be looking at areas that needs improving. The last commission, the Political Reform Commission, was in 1999, and the recommendations made in 2000, and I think about 60% or so of those recommendations were put in place by the Said Musa administration in 2001. It's looking at those recommendations, some new ones, and seeing what we can do to improve the way we are governed. So through those improvements, you will see the goods and services that government provides better reach the Belizean people better in a more efficient way.
All right, so the final words are yours before we go to a commercial break.
Well, I just want to, of course, remind Belizeans that we are still in the middle of a pandemic. So please continue to practice safe health measures, the wearing of the mask, the sanitation, the distancing and so on, no large gathering. I know it's difficult around this time. We just had the November 19th celebrations over the weekend, and it's hard not to be in Dangriga or in the south and not congregate with your brothers and sisters down there and to have a good time. But we have to continue to be safe. We have to continue to get vaccinated. We have to make sure that we can safely open the economy, which we've been doing. And we have to make sure that we continue to remain focused on what our primary objective is as government officials, as elected representatives, and that's to serve the people. It's about making sure that we continue to have focus on bettering the lives of Belizeans, and that's what this administration is about. It's strange that people feel that we have just become aloof. That's certainly not the case. We have been focused on making sure that we put in place the necessary economic measures, the necessary legislative measures to have a more sustainable path going forward. And that's what it's been all about. Now it's time to translate that, Isani, and now it's time to carry out our objectives in Plan Belize.
Chairman, thanks for having joined us this morning to share with us an update as to where your administration is in terms of government and governance. It's been a pleasure having you on set.
Thanks for having me.
We'll take our commercial break at this point, and when we return, it's to discuss all things Wagner's Youth Facility. I will be joined by William Dawson for that discussion. Stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor, and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
How can we support the emotional well-being of older adults during COVID-19? During the COVID-19 pandemic, and particularly while in quarantine, individuals, including older adults, may become more anxious, angry, stressed, agitated, or withdrawn, especially those who need healthcare assistance or have cognitive decline or dementia. Here are 4 strategies that can help you in supporting an older adult during this difficult time. 1. Communicate information and listen. Present with accurate, simple, and accessible information and facts about the COVID-19 outbreak, its progression, treatment, and effective strategies to prevent infection. Listen patiently to their needs and concerns. For older people with mild cognitive impairment or early stages of dementia, inform them of what is happening within their capacity and provide support to ease their anxiety and stress. 2. Promote positive mental and emotional health. Provide access to available mental health and psychosocial support services, also known as MHPSS services, for older adults and communicate when and how they can access them. Help older people keep regular routines and schedules as much as possible. You can also help them create new ones, including regular exercising, cleaning, daily chores, singing, painting, or other activities. Facilitate regular communication between older adults and their friends and families. 3. Help with medical needs. Make sure that older adults have at least up to 1 month of all the regular medicines that they may require. Explain how to use protective devices in a clear, concise way. Always be respectful and patient. 4. Assist with daily activities. Provide older people with details related to how and where they can get practical help if needed, like calling a taxi, dropping off supplies, having groceries delivered, and requesting medical care, as well as information on any locally available social support programs and services. For more information, consult the webpage of the Pan American Health Organization, www.paho.org/coronavirus.
With RF&G Insurance, you can request a quote, renew a policy, purchase a policy, and even file a claim effortlessly with WhatsApp. Here's how. WhatsApp the words "Get Started" to 670-8700. We will prompt you to select the service that you are interested in. Select the service and answer a few simple questions. An RF&G representative will process your request and follow up with you when your transaction is completed. It's that easy. Skip lines and WhatsApp us. Remember, it pays to get it right with RF&G Insurance, a road group company.
The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
We have been a partner with Smart for over 10 plus years. We have a full Smart plan we use as our major driver for our business. We have a service that rolls over in that if you call one and it is busy, it rolls over to the next line. So once you call us, you can get us at any time. Before we got this Smart service, we were paying upwards of nearly $2,000 in phone bills. Since we've had our Smart service, we pay an average of about $600. So we've had tremendous saving, more than 50%. For the businesses, if you want to save money, switch to Smart because it is far more cost effective and the service is excellent.
Smart continues to be innovative in bringing new technology and meaningful savings during these challenging times to businesses across Belize. Sign up for our VoIP technology or broadband packages and save more.
This can be you. Get vaccinated. The life you save can be yours. This is a message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
And welcome back. Our second conversation of the morning, as I mentioned before we went to break, is with the Wagner's Youth Facility. We have been joined this morning by the Director of Wagner's Youth Facility, my good friend William Dawson. Good morning.
Morning, Sonny.
And we have with us in studio as well a former intern. His name is Delroy Cardenas. Good morning, Delroy.
Good morning, Mr. Sonny.
Let's talk about the work of Wagner's Youth Facility. I know that for the most part, you're tasked with dealing with at-risk youths who enter the penal system, so to speak. Begin there. Draw from me a picture that illustrates what the day-to-day challenges are, and of course, being able to address these challenges systematically where it concerns young people.
Okay. Morning, Sonny, and morning to your viewers.
Good morning.
It's important to discuss young people, especially those who have entered the penal system. At Wagner's, we house young men who have been sent by the courts for committing serious offenses, breaking the law. And so there's many young persons there, primarily males, who come with serious emotional issues, behavioral issues, and what we have to do is to create an environment that is conducive to rehabilitation, working with young men who are suffering from different types of trauma. So it's a very big task, and so when they enter, we do an assessment. We do what is called psychometric analysis, which is basically having a conversation, feeling them out, finding what their mindset is when they come in, and they are also afforded PLA, which is a prior learning assessment to find out where they are in terms of literacy.
Yeah.
And so they are properly placed to address that particular issue that we've seen is one of the greatest components that we have a challenge with, to provide young men with educational opportunities, alternative educational opportunities, because many of them have dropped out of the conventional school system.
It's interesting you say that, because when you look at young men and women who are at risk, and the fact that at some point they would have withdrawn themselves from the formal academic institutions, as we call them, right? The high schools or the sixth forms, if they were going that far, or even primary school, some people decide that they won't return.
Right.
Looking at that and looking at them in that system and being able to provide an alternative to what would have been perhaps a classroom session where you're learning English, math, algebra, all these other stuff. When you have these young men in that particular system, how difficult is it for you to get them enrolled in some kind of meaningful program that upon their return to society that they would be able to follow through on that?
Well, like I said earlier, many of them have been traumatized in many ways, and we'd find out that some of them have been traumatized attending school. Because what we have been able to learn through our analysis is that we have many different types of learners. And so we operate on the Howard Gardner theory of multiple intelligence. This is to find the nature in which a person learns more comfortably.
Yeah.
And so working with young people, we know that they love to interact with technology. So we use computer-aided learning skills program. That is coupled with counseling and support systems and programmatic guidance to foster cognitive restructuring in the young men. When you make a person feel good about themselves, and these interactive programs, they come in the form of games and other type of play with it until they actually get it correct. So it raises their self-esteem and comfort level. Once we get them to get comfortable on the program. We've always referred to it, it's like turning on a light bulb in a dark room.
Yeah.
We've noticed that the behavioral patterns have improved immensely. And so once they open up and then they get a little commendation for the good work that they've done, we see that learning happens faster than usual. So that is just creating, like I said, a level of comfort for them that they're able to learn in peace and at their own timing. And eventually they come around and all the other options that are available in reading books and so forth, they gravitate to it.
Through this system, you became introduced to young Delroy Cardenas.
Yes.
Talk to us about having met him and how you've been able to change his outlook on life. I know that he is a former intern at the Wagner's Youth Facility, and he himself would have had some issues as to how he ended up there. Before we go to Delroy, let's get your take on having interacted with this young man and trying to change the way he sees things.
Okay, so when I met Delroy, he did have some serious behavioral issues, but it wasn't uncommon. The thing that makes it easy for me is because I was once an angry young man myself, and we came up in a community that was hostile, basically based on a gang environment. And so many of our young persons represent that type of culture. And so working with them, I wasn't judgmental. Delroy and I met and we spoke on many occasions, and when you speak to these young men, you have to find out what it is that they're suffering from, what are their challenges without being judgmental about it. And so that had opened up a door, and we afforded him different alternatives. And one of the ones that he chose that he really liked was music. And once we introduced him to music, Delroy started to show great improvement in his behavior. And I'm so proud that he's here now, being one of our upcoming local stars. So that's what happened.
How do you break that ice though? You're in an environment where you're dealing with someone who has his or her own inner issues. This is apart from perhaps what they're putting out there in society. They have their own demons, in a manner of speaking. How do you get through to that individual? I ask that because even as parents, there's still a challenge for us to be able to reach out to our children. And if it is difficult to do that at home, I'm thinking it's twice as hard to be able to do that in an environment where someone is resigned to either their fate, if they're there serving a term, or the fact that, you know what, this is what my life has become. How do you get through to that individual?
Well, you know, one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of the young men, because of the environment where they grow up in, they end up put up a front. And so this front is a defense mechanism to portray this hardcore character that is expected of them. And so primarily we don't want to discuss what it is that your criminal involvement or your charges are. We want to speak to you as an individual. What do you bring to the table? What are your talents? What are your skills? What you like? What you don't like? And respect and discipline is a must. That's first and foremost. We will first speak about respect and discipline because prisons on a whole are about order and discipline. And so once we get that understanding, we can speak about each other's likes and dislikes. So it's a conversation that should be casual and not one, like I said, that is judgmental. Once you break that ice, and I always remember introducing Delroy to music because I love music myself. And so music is a universal language. So once we start our conversation, before starting conversation, we're listening to a nice reggae, you know, song. I can see that he has, you know, bumping his head, tapping his feet. He's no longer tense, and that was my cue to step in.
That's an interesting starting point. Let's turn over to Delroy now and get from you what your experience has been like and what is your outlook on life now. How did you end up at the Wagner's Youth Facility?
Well, I was accused for a murder, you know. Yeah, caught up due to the companies where I really hang on with, you know. Circumstances at the era, my parents from, you know. A lot of from Pickstock era called Jungle, you know. many people look down on it because due to like the environment where I live, just to have peace like certain people, you know, really have to say anything upon it, kind of sure I think about certain people, like, you know, not got no water in our house, certain people have to thief light, you know, certain people, you know what I mean? Certain people have to do certain things where people don't have to do out there. You understand? So, you know, like the real garrison in the hood, you know? So I just, my man, you know, like, you get like I get misplaced, I get miscarried by.
Yeah.
If anything in a sense, but certain time you cannot even there wrong. And then, say, you hanging a one day, maybe that one day go do something, you understand? You say, maybe say, they let me there eat out, you understand? So, you get accused of different things sometimes, you know, and that I get caught up back at Wagner's, you know.
How old were you at the time when you were taken in?
Wagner's?
Yeah.
I was 16.
You're 16. How old are you now?
19.
You're 19. So for the better part of 3 years, perhaps we could say that you were in that system. What were some of the challenges that you were facing in the Wagner's Youth Facility? I know you're around other young men like yourself who are accused of other crimes and what have you. What was that experience like?
When I first reached Wagner's, you know they got like cattle farm, pig stock, jungle, you know they got man farm. I got juvenile farm, Southside, Ghost Town, PIV, different area, you know. Then I know really this is like my first time, you know. So I have to watch what happen now, you know. So I also feel like, you know, watch, and then besides that I lost like, you know, you just have to keep on it fights. But first I'm ignorant. I did curse like I thing about first I'm ignorant, I think you understand, like for every little thing I was like course then I forgot. I think so. You know, like we are working calmness, man, we see it in a calmness, you know. And after that I meet Mr. Harris, you know, and he hooked me on to Mr. Dawson. In a sense, when I meet Mr. Harris, he tell me, oh, you have to meet the director. In a sense, when I meet the director, after that, me and Mr. Dawson get plugged in. You know, we plug in, and then Mr. Dawson just try to work at me, try to put me in a, like, programs, put me in a kind of online school, you know, which I'm in a fourth farm. But that's where I'm released from prison. I kind of really finished kind of online high school, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then after that, Mr. D curved me now, my steadman, that I radio station in jail. And after that, I bring out this first song near where I'm right near Curse in the City. Yeah, that song there I put for my steadman jail. And when I do first that, Mr. Murray, I'm like, boy, the youth have talent. The youth not in his backyard, you know. And after that, I just start.
It's funny you would say that, Delroy, because I always think to myself, right, as someone who visits the Belize Central Prison as often as I can, I always think to myself, but here is a population of men and women who are extremely talented in their own right. But it's almost as if though you have to wait till you get locked down to realize that you do have something that you can contribute otherwise. Because when you're free and you're out and about, your focus is not on sharpening your God-given talent, right? Your focus is on hanging out or trying to make $1 here and there. At what point did you realize, okay, you know what, music is my thing. I want to get into this thing and put everything into it?
Well, at what point, like, when I really decided and said that I really want to do the music and I start for Wagner's. In the sense, like, when Mr. D said, and Mr. D and they start push me, cause like they say, first I was like sing one song, but like I was freestyle my only piece and Mr. D and I say, you see what I tell her, I could jot down that thing and eventually I turn her, you know? And at that time I start, you know, one day I just come, and I said, Mr. D, Mr. Harris, Mr. D, what I got? And I said, Mr. D, I'm so proud, and after that when he translated me, he transferred me across to the Steadman or the studio, the jail studio, you know?
Yeah.
And after that, man tell me I have to call it one positive thing, you know?
Which is fair.
Yes, to the first, you know, because when man, me carry that way and then in the streets and everything kind of thing, you know, it's kind of hard for me to come up with a positive thing because first, you know, if I outright first, I be like, you know, all kind of thing I sing about, you know, but I sing about the thing where I put up on it, you know, what we want, what are the key, you understand? So, and I like quite up on that key there, you know. Right now, like, I could sing mostly positive tracks, you know. And really everything about war, you know, like, I think.
Let me ask you another question here, Delroy. How challenging has it been, or how easy has it been for you to get back into society and take on a positive attitude?
Well, challenge, you know, because some of our friends maybe not like when they sing the positive song. So our friend they when they sing the war song, you know, but no matter what friend, you have to do it within you. And also I have to kick back in a corner and think about myself, you understand? I will have fans who like that kind of song, you know? I have fans who like these kind of songs, and I have fans who like the whole total, you know? So that's the way I try work, you know, I just try, like, I know I build like one song to this song, yeah, I build like what, girl song, I build like say, like all of the war song like they feel us entertainment, you know, because they're not really like we're not out of pass or us, you know, that us entertainment because even if like we not sing it, the Caribbean next Caribbean are sing it, we still listen to it, getting streams on, you know?
Yeah.
You dig and that right there, you know?
Alright. Let me take it back to William for a second here as well. So Delhi is one success story.
Right.
And this should be lauded and commended for what it is.
Yes.
But you also have quite a number of other success stories as well as people who fall to recidivism,
right,
where they end up returning back to the system.
Right.
How has it been like for you as a director of Wagner's Youth Facility to see the highs and lows in this particular context? Those who have been able to make it out successfully and turn their lives around, and those who simply come back out into society and fall by the wayside.
Well, it's been extremely difficult, Isani, over the years, emotional roller coaster, because when we provide this support system in the prison for these young men and they're doing well, they're responding well to the rehabilitation, it gives you a boost because you say, yes, you know, like for example, when we won Delhi's confidence, it was a big yes for us. But like you rightly alluded to, many of the young men, when they leave, there isn't that continuity and that support on the outside. And because of that, over the past 4 years, we've noticed that we've lost 14 of the young men who were housed there to gun violence, who were doing well in the prison. And so that is what actually led us to pursue the Leadership Intervention Unit strategy, because we needed to create a network and a support system. While they're in the prison, we were also collaborating with other institutions like the Community Rehabilitation Department, who has been very instrumental, the Department of Youth Services. And once they afforded us those commitments to assist with the boys, we've seen great improvement now. When they leave, like I said, it's a challenge. So if you heard what Deli mentioned earlier, he was doing well in Fort Farm, but when he left, automatically he had to discontinue with the high school program because of the lack of a device and internet access and stuff like that. So we need to bridge these gaps if we truly want to see the improvement of the lifestyle of our young people. And that's why we're happy at this point that we're seeing the political will. We're working very closely with Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Karim Musa, who is supporting us, along with many other cabinet members. So the conversation right now is a priority in creating support system, looking at the root causes of social ills in the first place, getting in these homes. I'm working with the director of the Department of Youth Services very closely, Mr. Kevin Cadle, and the Behavioral Modification Department, so that we can look at the reality and assess what's happening in these neighborhoods so that we can reach out to these young people. There has to be alternatives and opportunities if we want to see change.
It is interesting as well to look at the idea or the fact that while you have these young men in an institution, you're able to keep the strict order and organization, if I may. But like you said earlier, when you're back out into society, because there's no system in place, or perhaps there are certain systems in place, but for whatever reason, these young men and young women don't turn to these other services, so to speak, to be able to continue where they left off from. Sadly, it's almost as if though this will only serve me while I'm incarcerated. When I'm back out on the streets, I have to fend for myself. I no longer look at the kind of stability that was afforded to me while I was institutionalized. Because that's basically what it is, right? When you're in the system, you're basically shown a way. You're shown a certain path that you need to abide by while you're there.
Indeed.
When you're back out into society, you make your own rules, so to speak. And so it's very difficult for you to say, well, I will leave from Wagner's and follow up at Department of Youth Services or any other resource facility or services that could allow me to continue my self-development and go along that path that was set for me. You have worked closely with Kevin over at the Department of Youth Services. And I know that you've seen quite a number of these very same instances that we're describing here, where perhaps people start off on the bright path and then they come out here and then it's a totally different story. Talk to us about that.
Well, you're certainly right. It's not for the lack of support systems, like I said, there has to be sustainability and continuity. And also, I think what we have not been doing in this country is collecting data, studying the data, and looking for favorable outcomes over a period of time. And so what we want to do is see that change. We also need resources. These departments need the necessary resources to function. It's not an easy task, it's not an overnight fix, but once we remain committed, and this is the next thing, once you're dealing with young people, they're going to hold you accountable for that relationship that you built. Deli can tell you over the years since he left, it's a text message, it's a call, you know, we meet and how are you doing, and that's why we're here. Still communicating, even though he's not incarcerated. In fact, I'm one of his biggest fans actually right now of his music, and that is what we want to see more of. I can tell you, as a society, we're guilty of being judgmental many times towards young people or people who don't share commonalities with us. And that's one of the other things we have to look at, that these young people live in a pop culture. You know, we are old school pretty much. But as long as there's that respect and discipline, we can vibe on another level. You know, and that's big. So whenever you have people suffering in their own little corner, it's important sometimes to reach out and let them know that we're human beings. You know, we understand the difficulties of life. We live in a pandemic time where all of us are stressed out and frustrated. So the idea is creating a network. If you create a network and you can have a referral system, I might not be able to help you, but my brother Isani, you know, could look out for you. And once we have that support system, that's why we're glad to be partnered with the church, the NGOs, the police department even is coming on board or has been on board supporting us because they want to remove that suppressive mentality that the police has and look at a more therapeutic approach.
So turning back to Delroy now, so you came out of the system, you're back into society. What have you been doing with yourself?
Well, right now, I just try to stay focused and stay on a positive road, you know. And I just try to sell my dubs, you know. Try to stay in the music, stay in the studio. You know, like 2 weeks ago, I supposed to post an album, like 14 songs containing it, you know. But what happened, like, for we computer catch a rootkit virus. So like all the files was deleted.
Wow.
You check? So now like all the fans in wait for all the blast, you know. But like the blast got revealed. Because the files was deleted, you know, but I just try to work on that because now like my music is sold through all platforms, on TikTok, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, all streams and all things, you know. So that the movements right now, so I just try to creep before I could crawl on. You know? You know, eventually I could run and sprint off. You know?
Take off and fly.
But between that, eventually when, you know, we find a nicely job, you know, you know, we say back and like, we don't want people watching and tell us what nice, respectable job we can do, safe on us, make a money on us. Besides, because after shoot the dub, we like 200 for one dub for us, I say like, you know, for us, I big up Mr. D, you know. It's a curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. I just put Mr. Dini and me, just say that I get 200. You know? Yeah, so that's easy money. Not really easy, that's my lyrics I make money, you know? So.
Your talent.
Yeah.
All right, so speaking about your talent, you have a music video that you want to share with us this morning?
It's Curse in the City.
All right. You want to introduce it?
Yes, man.
Go right ahead. Look into the camera and kick it off.
Oh, sing it?
Introduce the video, the music video.
Oh, I need my phone. My phone dead.
Well, we have the video.
Boy.
Just talk to us about it and introduce it to the viewers.
You see with the with the video now, I see with Curse in the City, Curse in the City, that's a big song, you know? Like, I'm a guy, like when I'm young, I think, I'm a get caught up, you know, with a fireman, I'm you know, gone at him. And when I was near hostel, and then I end up the Wagners, but when I'm at the Wagners, only 2 weeks. And then when I'm transferred, I'm at the hostel for like 8 months, because I'm committed, I'm get him, you know. So yeah, and that night, like I say, like, you know, like when I try to change your life and nearly pass there, they are paint up black as I get boss that, you know. And I see certain things like when Chinese in a shop, like young people they get raped, you know. Like picnic, they have picnic, and that's why I say like manners they have picnic, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So I just say like I have to bring out a song where like where I touch the people's heart out there, you know, with the kids there, I think. You think so? I just say it's that big song, you know, this song is forward, you know. And why I do this song right here, because the song is for original beat. I like know why I set up my thing, I will build the song over and ask people to run it up over. You know, so
alright.
So can we go to waste.
That said then, let's kick it off and take our view of Curse in the City, right?
Yes.
Alright.
Get to use them not have no pity as murderers, thieves, society them see we. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get to use them not have no pity as murderers, thieves, society them see we. Them paint we black as we get bust with a strap. Never want see the youths them pan track. Beat we up and lock we down pan top. Look for job them now walk away from that. So what we got to do to make money? Don't give up the fight, youths don't worry. Me granny tell me better days soon coming. Father God, me a beg up, please help me hurry. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get the youths them not have no pity as murderers, thieves, society them see we. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get the youths them not have no pity as murderers, thieves, society them see we. Everywhere we go, Chinese in a store, black people them asleep on floor. Spiritual prayers, open door. Get the youths them not rich, get the youths them poor. Little babies them a get raped. Newborn baby living in a pain. Watching little minors dripping like a shame. Many get the youths life went down the drain. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get the youths them not have no pity as murderers, thieves, society them see we. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get the youths them not have no pity as murderers, thieves, society them see we. Them paint we black as we get bust with a strap. Never want see the youths them pan track. Beat we up and lock we down pan top. Look for job them now walk away from that. So what we got to do to make money? Don't give up the fight, youths don't worry. Me granny tell me better days soon coming. Father God, me a beg up, please help me hurry. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get the youths them not have no pity as murderers, thieves, society them see we. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get the youths them not have no pity as murderers, thieves, society them see we.
All right, that was well put together and well sung. I must attest to your talent as a young and upcoming Belizean artist. I want to say thanks for joining us, William and Delroy. The conversation with you guys has been rather enlightening in terms of understanding how you're dealing with at-risk youth, and understanding your own struggle as a young man in the system and being able to overcome some of these challenges. So once again, thanks for having joined us. We now take a commercial break, and when we come back, it's to wrap up our show. Stay tuned.
Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get to use them not have no pity. As murderers, thieves, society them say we. Everywhere we go, Chinese in a store, black people them asleep on floor. Spiritual prayers, open door. Get to use them not rich, get to use them poor. Little babies, them a get raped. Newborn baby living in a pain. Watching little.
Following the COVID-19 vaccination, some people may experience side effects such as soreness at the injection site, chills, nausea, body aches, or a fever. But these symptoms go away after a few days. These side effects are a result of your immune system responding to the vaccine and are not a sign that you are sick with COVID-19. The COVID-19 vaccines will not give you COVID. When you receive your vaccine, the health worker will advise you what to take if you are experiencing any of these side effects. Remember, these mild side effects cannot compare to you not being able to share memorable moments with your family and friends if you fall gravely ill from COVID. Vaccines bring us closer.
Is always with you, from live TV, sports, and on-demand titles. Choose your plan today. Plans start as low as $15 per month. My TV, entertainment, anytime, anywhere.
Improving lives, delivering quality. Water for you and me in Belize. WS, we make it happen.
For the immediate future, our entire country's focus is to ensure that each of us take adequate measures to mitigate against the COVID-19 pandemic. We all need to ensure frequent hand washing or sanitizing, regular disinfection of surfaces, constant social distancing, and a sufficient supply of sanitizing and cleansing material. At this critical time, a reliable supply of clean potable water is of utmost importance to ensure our health and peace of mind. Water is therefore a vital necessity to help us remain free from illness and ultimately to help Belize's economic recovery. Help us to help you by paying your water bill. Our return to a healthy and vibrant economy depends on you.
Belize Water Services, delivering water and more.
Es un hecho. Únicamente con Smart obtienes todo realmente ilimitado. Solo con Smart obtienes datos ilimitados en cualquier momento. Mientras que con el otro proveedor solo son datos dobles los fines de semana. Con datos ilimitados todos los días no hay necesidad de esperar, así que es un hecho que nuestros planes ilimitados superan a la competencia. Por lo tanto, no permita que le digan cómo y cuándo usar sus datos. Y obtenga llamadas, mensajes de texto y datos ilimitados. Vive la verdadera experiencia de planes ilimitados con Smart. Es un hecho. Haga el cambio y viva Smart.
Accidents on the job can result in a loss of life, which is devastating. If your loved one dies as a result of a work-related accident, you may be able to receive a death benefit from the Social Security Board. Death benefit is paid to a widow or widower, children under 18 years, or up to 21 years if attending school, or dependent parents. Death benefit is a monthly payment paid to the dependents of the deceased. Dependents receive the death benefit for life from the date of their loved one's death or until they no longer meet eligibility. Want to know more about death benefit? Visit our website or contact any of our offices to have someone assist you. Also, be sure to visit our Facebook page and give us a like to stay informed. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize,
CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
And welcome back. We are at the tail end of our show for this morning. It's been quite an interesting one. We reviewed the past 12 months with the People's United Party, and of course the chairman was able to share with us some of the accomplishments of the administration thus far and what some of the challenges are that they're still faced with, including the pandemic situation. We also had a discussion with the director of the Wagner's Youth Facility and a former intern. And what was interesting about that discussion is perhaps what you guys did not necessarily see on air. And that is the fact that I've learned a new term and the politically correct way of referring to young men who have gone through the system at the Belize Central Prison and the Wagner's Youth Facility. They are referred to as interns, and that is because, as I was told earlier, they were trying to move away from the stigma that comes along with being called an inmate at that particular age, right? So I've learned a new word, and I'm sharing that with you guys as well. But all in all, it's been an interesting show. This is where I say my goodbyes. Of course, the contact information you will see on the screen in terms of persons who want to get in touch with us via email or on our social media platforms, all right? So that information is on the screen. And this is where I say goodbye until tomorrow. Keep your eyes, your minds, and your hearts open. You join us at 6:30 once again when you open your eyes to start your morning right. Goodbye, Belize.
So what we got to do to make money? Don't give up the fight, youths, don't worry. My granny tell me better days soon coming. Father God, me a beg up, please help me hurry. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get the youths, them not have no pity. As murderers, thieves, society, them see we. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get the youths, them not have no pity. As murderers, thieves, society, them see we. Everywhere we go, Chinese in a store, black people them asleep on floor. Spiritual prayers open door. Get the youths them not rich, get the youths them poor. Little babies them a get raped. Newborn baby living in a pain. Watching little minors recognize the shame. Many get the youths life went down the drain. Curse in the city, down in the city, well sticky. Get the youths them not have no pity. As murderers, thieves, society them see we.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.